Nicolas Flamel remains one of history's most enduring and enigmatic figures, straddling the uncertain boundary between verified fact and fantastical legend. Born in 14th century Paris, Flamel's documented life is modest compared to the larger-than-life mythical persona that later emerges. Despite contemporary records describing him as a humble scribe and manuscript scrivener, later centuries recast Flamel as a master alchemist who purportedly deciphered the secrets of eternal life and material transmutation. As we explore his story, it is essential to disentangle the historical facts from the rich tapestry of myth, thus establishing a foundation for understanding both his human accomplishments and the esoteric legacy that continues to intrigue modern audiences. Nicolas Flamel was born in a period marked by social, economic, and cultural transformation. The late Middle Ages and early Renaissance in Europe were times of significant transition, where the remnants of medieval scholasticism began yielding to a renewed interest in classical learning and scientific inquiry. From the bustling streets of Paris, Flamel's documented life intersected with a period of fervent scholarship, where the discovery and translation of ancient texts sparked intellectual revolutions. This era also witnessed the mingling of mysticism and emerging scientific thought, providing fertile ground for the rise of alchemical pursuits. Historically, Flamel was a well-to-do manuscript seller and a collector of books, a role that placed him in the midst of the intellectual currents of his time. It is widely accepted by historians that his connection to alchemy was more about his interests in the ancient texts and the quest for hidden knowledge than about any demonstrable mastery of chemical processes. In this environment, where illuminated manuscripts and secret teachings circulated among scholars and mystics, the seeds of his legendary status were sown. His modest beginnings and later success in business allowed him to foster close relationships with influential figures, further consolidating his reputation within both lay society and the circles of esoteric study. Alchemy during Flamel's lifetime carried a dual significance. It was a precursor to modern chemistry as well as a symbolic journey towards spiritual enlightenment. Alchemists pursued the transformation of base metals into noble metals, most famously the transmutation of lead into gold, and they also sought the elixir of life, a substance believed capable of granting eternal youth or even immortality. Flamel's name became inexorably linked to these pursuits, and it is this association that has immortalized him in the annals of both history and myth. Although contemporary records do not substantiate claims that he produced gold or discovered the legendary Philosopher's Stone, his posthumous reputation as a master alchemist grew exponentially during the Renaissance and beyond. This surge in legend can be partly attributed to the mysterious nature of the alchemical process itself, and partly to the allure of secret knowledge that promises human transcendence. For many, Flamel embodies the archetype of the determined seeker whose insatiable curiosity leads him to unravel the mysteries of the universe, an appeal that resonates deeply with those fascinated by the intersections of science, magic, and spirituality. The transformation of Nicolas Flamel from a modest Parisian scribe to a symbol of esoteric power began centuries after his death. Medieval and Renaissance writers, driven by the zeitgeist of their era, began to infuse stories of magical transmutation and the attainment of immortality into his biography. Over time, Flamel was retroactively cast, not merely as a collector of arcane texts, but as an adept practitioner of the secret arts, a creator of the Philosopher's Stone. This mythical object, believed to have the power to turn base metals into gold and to unlock the secrets of eternal life, became inseparably attached to his legacy. As folklore continued to evolve, narrative embellishments accumulated. The enigmatic aura surrounding the process of alchemy, filled with allegorical symbols and coded language, allowed later generations to reimagine Flamel's life as a grand allegory of human aspiration towards perfection. His supposed exploits provided fertile ground for storytellers, who recast him as a character balancing on the fine line between science and sorcery. The cultural fascination with immortality and the hunger for forbidden knowledge meant that Flamel's story could not help but capture the public imagination. Thus, in literature, art, and even modern cinema, he has come to represent the eternal quest for mastery over the natural world. Beyond the observable legends, the story of Nicolas Flamel serves as a potent symbol of the alchemical journey, both on a physical and metaphysical level. The philosopher's stone, within alchemical traditions, is imbued with a dual-purpose material transformation on one hand and spiritual enlightenment on the other. This duality reflects the broader human condition, the perpetual struggle between the pragmatic pursuits of everyday life and the dream of transcending mortal limitations. Flamel's connection with this symbolic object invites us to explore a broader philosophical inquiry into what it means to seek wisdom beyond the apparent confines of the physical world. The nuanced interplay between alchemy as a proto-science and as a spiritual discipline also underscores a significant aspect of Flamel's enduring allure. For the ancient alchemists, the process of transformation was not simply an exercise in laboratory experimentation, but a metaphor for personal and cosmic evolution. In this light, Flamel's supposed discovery of the secret principles underlying alchemy can be read as an allegory for the transformative journey every individual must undertake. A journey marked by struggle, perseverance, and the eventual transcendence of ordinary human limitations. Modern interpretations of Flamel's life have further fueled the fascination with his legendary persona. Today, his name is not only enshrined in historical texts, but also in popular culture. From best-selling novels to blockbuster films, modern storytellers continue to reimagine his legacy, often emphasizing themes of eternal life, hidden wisdom, and the ultimate convergence of science and mysticism. Scene 3. The broader fascination with the unknown. These representations keep the dialogue between myth and history alive, ensuring that Flamel's story remains a vibrant part of cultural discourse. The enduring interest in Nicolas Flamel reflects a broader human fascination with the unknown, the alluring promise that hidden within the recesses of ancient lore might lie the secret to transcending mortality. In an age where scientific advances continuously redefine our understanding of the natural world, Flamel's myth serves as a reminder of humanity's timeless quest for perfection and immortality. His story, whether approached as historical investigation or as allegorical narrative, invites modern audiences to revisit questions of purpose, mortality, and the ever-present interplay between empirical inquiry and mysticism. When approaching the life of Nicolas Flamel, the challenge lies in discerning empirical evidence from the layers of legend that have accrued over the centuries. Scene 2. Flamel as astute businessman and manuscript collector. Historical documents provide a grounded picture of a man who was more than likely an astute businessman and a diligent manuscript collector, well versed in the intellectual currents of his time. Yet it is precisely his modest origins and the documented human struggle against the limitations imposed by mortality that have rendered his story so adaptable to myth-making. Scene 2. Historical record versus fiction and legend. Historians and researchers often grapple with the dichotomy presented by Flamel's legacy. On the one hand, there is a clear historical record of his existence, a life set against the backdrop of a dynamic, evolving Europe. On the other hand, there exists an almost irresistible pull from fiction and legend, a compelling narrative that blends the pragmatism of his documented life with the tantalizing possibility of a hidden transformative secret. This duality makes Flamel an ideal subject for interdisciplinary inquiry, one that straddles the realms of history, literature, and esoteric studies, while offering a profound reflection on the human quest for meaning and transformation. By recognizing the historical context and the subsequent mythological embellishments associated with Nicolas Flamel, we begin to appreciate the complex tapestry of influences that have helped shape his modern reputation. His life becomes a portal through which we examine broader themes such as the interplay between science and mysticism, the pursuit of hidden knowledge, and the human desire for transcendence. These themes not only define Flamel's allure, but also serve as a microcosm of the larger cultural and philosophical currents that continue to animate scholarly and popular debates alike. In this light, the introduction to Nicolas Flamel becomes more than just a recounting of dates and events. It sets the stage for an exploration into the very nature of myth-making, the search for existential truth, and the profound impact that a single historical figure can have on multiple generations of seekers. As subsequent sections delve deeper into the alchemical pursuits, varied interpretations of ancient texts, and the legacy that extends well beyond the confines of historical record, readers are invited to approach Flamel's story as a multidimensional narrative. one that challenges us to consider how the past continually informs our present understanding, and how myths, with all their ornamental qualities, still provide us with powerful insights into the human condition. The journey into the world of Nicolas Flamel is thus not merely an investigation of historical documents, but an odyssey into the heart of an enduring mystery. A mystery where the alchemical transmutation is as much about the transformation of the individual as it is about the transformation of matter, forever linking the tangible to the transcendent. Alchemy emerged over centuries as a discipline where art, science, and mysticism converged, setting the stage for many of today's scientific breakthroughs. Although its esoteric symbols and secretive methods later gave way to modern chemistry, alchemy's intellectual roots are woven deeply into the fabric of human inquiry. This historical backdrop is crucial for understanding the period in which Nicolas Flamel lived, a time when the quest for hidden truths intersected with burgeoning scientific curiosity and spiritual exploration. The origins of alchemy stretch back to the ancient civilizations of Egypt, Greece, and China. In Egypt, the early practitioners saw alchemy as a spiritual exercise, aligning their work with religious and cosmological beliefs. Egyptian practitioners, such as those who worked in the temples of Thoth, imbued their experiments with symbolism, believing that transformation in nature mirrored an internal progression towards perfection. In the Hellenistic world, Greek philosophers like Aristotle and Plotinus provided frameworks that further refined the alchemical worldview. Their philosophical reflections posited that all elements in nature were interrelated through underlying forces and spiritual essences. Greek alchemists built on these ideas by exploring the notion that the material world was subject to continuous transformation, a view that resonated with both the mystical and the empirical. Simultaneously, in East Asia, Chinese alchemists pursued immortality through elixirs and physical remedies. Their work, deeply intertwined with Taoist philosophies, viewed transformation as both a physical and spiritual discipline. The Chinese idea of harmonizing opposites, the yin and yang, shares striking similarities with the dual goals of material transmutation and spiritual purification found in Western alchemy. These early traditions contributed a rich tapestry of techniques and symbols which later evolved into a distinct European alchemical practice. As these ideas journeyed across cultures, they combined scientific observation with symbolic allegory. The result was a discipline that was as much about understanding the hidden properties of matter as it was about achieving a kind of spiritual enlightenment. Alchemy is a proto-science. During the medieval and early Renaissance periods, the very era in which Nicolas Flamel lived, alchemy was a leading force in what we now consider proto-science. Although modern chemistry would eventually adopt rigorous experimental methods and empirical testing, alchemists began the process of systematically observing natural phenomena. Their work laid the groundwork for meticulous experimentations that sought patterns and principles underlying the transformation of substances. European alchemists greatly influenced the scientific evolution of their time by experimenting with the separation, purification, and recombination of substances. Their cryptic writings and elaborate diagrams were not merely mystical incantations, but also instructions for practical laboratory operations. In the bustling intellectual centers of medieval Europe, alchemical theory and practice spurred an early form of scientific inquiry that challenged traditional boundaries between metaphysics and material science. Alchemy's influence on modern chemistry is perhaps most apparent in its experimental spirit. The alchemists' fervent pursuits, be it the search for a universal solvent or the possibility of transmuting base metals into gold, drove ambitious research in metallurgy and medicine. Their practices of distillation, evaporation, and crystallization became standard techniques in later scientific endeavors. Even if the ultimate goals were steeped in mysticism, the methodical nature of their experiments laid an important cornerstone for the empirical approach that defines modern science. At its core, alchemy was as much a philosophical and spiritual discipline as a set of experimental practices. The alchemical quest was driven by a profound desire to understand not only the physical world, but also the deeper metaphysical truths that govern existence. Alchemists believed that through the transformation of substances, one could mirror the transformation inherent in the human soul. Central to alchemical thought was the belief in a fundamental unity underlying the cosmos. Many alchemists posited that all matter contained a hidden divine spark, a belief that paved the way for the idea that human beings themselves could undergo a parallel process of inner transformation. The allegory of turning lead into gold symbolized more than a mere physical conversion. It represented the journey towards spiritual perfection, where the base, mundane aspects of the self could be transmuted into something noble and eternal. Meditative texts and encrypted manuscripts from the period reveal that alchemists were as likely to engage in contemplative exercises as they were in chemical experiments. Their work was deeply intertwined with the principles of analogical reasoning, seeing in nature a coded language that, once deciphered, could reveal the secret laws of the universe. In such a context, the quest for the philosopher's stone took on a dual role. It was the symbol of both material wealth and an elevated state of consciousness. Furthermore, alchemical treatises of the era often drew on symbols drawn from various religious and philosophical traditions, including Hermeticism and Neoplatonism. The idea of transformation wasn't limited to changing substances, it was also about the evolution of thought itself. This imbued the practice with a holistic character, fusing the inquiry into natural phenomena with an almost mystical longing to grasp the ineffable truths of life. The innovative spirit of the alchemists didn't vanish with the decline of their mystical doctrines. Instead, it gradually evolved into practices that are central to modern chemistry and medicine. The careful distillation and observation techniques pioneered by alchemists laid the groundwork for subsequent research. They established a methodological approach that, although later refined and mystified by the rise of the scientific method, was crucial to the evolution of laboratory science. One of the most significant contributions of alchemy was its role in encouraging a systematic study of substances. Alchemists catalogued reactions with meticulous care, developed early forms of chemical apparatus, and in some cases even engaged in methodical recording of experimental results. Their investigations into the nature of matter did more than challenge existing paradigms. They also spurred the development of new technologies and remedies that would later influence the field of medicine. Medical alchemy was a branch that sought to harness the secrets of nature for therapeutic purposes. Alchemists experimented with herbal concoctions, mineral compounds, and even metal preparations, all in the hope of discovering a panacea that could cure illness and prolong life. In a time when medicine was often intertwined with superstition, these experimental approaches provided a bridge to a more rational, observation-based practice of healthcare. Although many of their ideas would eventually be overhauled by modern pharmacology, the drive to systematically study natural substances has its roots firmly in this alchemical tradition.